we've quickly grown in the Viasat channel. And like I mentioned before in kind of my opening, part of the reason is that the fact that we have two dedicated people on the Viasat team. If you send an email with just an address to Viasat at TCG-Partners, within 2 hours, you're going to get that qualification. But alongside the qualification also comes the contract. So, right then and there, you have everything you need, to facilitate that order. And what's great is that they're able to complete install typically within 2 to 5 business days. I've even seen some stuff, next day installs if we rush it hard enough. So Graham's a tremendous resource for us. He's running the entire East Coast, and without stealing any more of his thunder, I'm gonna hand it off to this guy. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. First off, just want to say a huge thank you to you guys, the partners, for coming out. It takes time to come out and do this stuff, and we certainly appreciate it. Time is our most precious commodity, and for companies like ourselves that are only in the channel, this is just such a great opportunity for us to talk to you guys. So we really do appreciate you coming out to learn about these products. So thank you. Viasat, we are a satellite-based broadband provider. Has anybody heard of us before? I'm sure some of you guys may have seen my presentation, but the pitch is really easy. And really, there's 3 components to our pitch, and if you guys remember only this from all the rest of the stuff I say, then I've done my job. So number 1, we've got service everywhere. So we cover 100% of the country. Even some areas like Puerto Rico and Mexico, we've got service as well, U.S. Virgin Islands. So that's number 1. Number 2, we can install in 3 to 5 days. So if you've got a customer that needs something immediately, we can install. And then number 3, we are a great option for backup, and I'll go into some detail on that. That's it. That's the pitch. Pretty simple, pretty basic. So I'm going to go into some detail on all of those aspects here and tell you a little bit about the company. But again, if you guys remember just that from my presentation, those 3 things, then I've done my job. So a little bit about Viasat. It's kind of your typical sort of Silicon Valley type story. Started in 1986 in our founder's garage. Him and a couple of buddies got together and started building modems for the military. And from that, they used those modems, and those modems were going to be used in remote locations with military, operations abroad or wherever. And they pretty much started out just making equipment. And it turned out that a lot of those modems were used for satellite, which kind of led them into satellite. And then lo and behold, a number of years later, they're like, well, why don't we just build our own satellites? And so we started building our own satellites. And the company has grown tremendously. So we did about $2.5 billion in revenue this year. And, we're just a growing company. We're over 5,000 employees now. It's actually closer to 6. We've got a total of 5 satellites that are in the sky today, and 2 more that are under construction, and a 3rd that is under development. So the goal of Viasat is to connect the world. So that is, it's a pretty ambitious goal, I know, but that is the goal of the company. So there are 2 satellites that primarily provide the service for our customers on the business space, but there's a total of 5 in the fleet, with 2 more being built and a 3rd in development. So. Has anybody flown American Airlines recently? Probably. That's a big airline out of here. What about JetBlue? If you've done that, that may be where you first experienced our product. So we've got about a 1/3 of the market in in-flight Wi-Fi, and that might be where you've seen our product. So not to be confused with GoGo, which I always get on Delta, which is unusable. The Viasat product, typically if you have it, it's fast. You can stream Netflix. I've been on a flight where somebody beside me was FaceTiming their family, from 30,000 feet in the air. So pretty cool. We also provide the Wi-Fi for Air Force One. We're not supposed to talk about it, but the entire VIPSAM fleet, so the U.S. government's fleet, all have our service. So when those tweets are coming out at 2 in the morning or wherever, that's it's typically going over our network. And no, we can't stop it, unfortunately. Sorry. Actually, I will tell a funny story. So I've heard sort of different versions of this story, but it's kind of funny how we ended up getting that contract. From what I understand is when President Obama was a candidate, he traveled around and was going to different sites and stuff, and his family would often come and meet him. And a lot of times they would fly to meet him on JetBlue, which happened to have our service. So once candidate Obama became President Obama, his family started traveling with him on Air Force One. And Sasha and Malia apparently came up to their dad and said, "Dad, the Wi-Fi on this plane sucks. Why can't we have the same stuff they have on JetBlue?" And so apparently the president said, go find out who's JetBlue is using. And as it turned out, we already did a lot of business with them anyways. And so there we go. So I don't know if that's entirely true. I've heard different versions of it, but it's a great story to tell. So there you go. All right. There's over 1,000 aircraft. We have over 2 million flights a year in our service and growing. That's a huge part of our business, and we're growing there. So, but let's talk a little bit about basic broadband service. So businesses. So we have probably 600,000 residential customers as well that are out there. But obviously we're here to talk about business. So we have internet available pretty much everywhere. As I said, 100% of the country we service. Most of it can be serviced with what we classify as broadband speed. So 35 down by 4 up. All right, that's available to about 96% of the US population. We do have some areas where we've got speeds of 100 down and 60 down. And then there are some remote areas where we have slower speeds. But 35 down by 4 up, available to 96% of the US population. Anywhere they are, we can do there. We also launched an unlimited plan in 2017, which has really been a big game changer for us. So that kind of takes away that question about, oh man, what happens if I go over my data limit, you know? And so we've got an unlimited plan now that has really helped with us in our sales. So here's a quick shot of the coverage map. So anywhere where you've got that sort of light blue area, that is where we've got at least 35 down by 4 up. So you take a quick look at that map and go, well, Graham, that doesn't look like 96% of the country, right? Well, it's actually 96% of the US population. That dark area there, we do have service available, but it's only 12 down by 3 up. So those are pretty remote areas. Anywhere where there's a population center, as you can see, we've got like a beam that covers that area. And that's how the service is provided, incidentally. You can see here, that's a beam. So there's a beam coming down from the satellite that covers a geographic area. And if you're within that beam, you can get certain speeds. If you're outside that beam, you get other speeds. So that's the coverage map. So as you can see, pretty much everywhere we've got service. And again, 96% of the US population with at least 35 down by 4 up. Here's the plans that we offer. This is our most popular plan that I was talking about. 35 down by 4 up for $175 a month, unlimited data. Okay, so that's a pretty strong offering. That's our most popular product. We sell the most of that. We also do have 60 down and 100 down. The upload is still 4, and these products are definitely more popular on the residential side. The businesses tend to go with this 35 by 4. That's the most popular plan for them. So $100 install. It says limited time offer, but we've been running it for what, two and a half years. So we do installs for $100. These are the 12 by 3 plans. So we have an unlimited in that space as well as metered plans. Everybody always asks, well, why is the 12 by 3 more than the 35 by 4? It's just a simple matter of availability, how many people we can fit in the beams, and just the economics of that. So if you do have a customer that's out in the middle of nowhere, a real remote area, that 12 by 3 is the most popular plan for that. All right. So all of our connections include a priority connection. So for businesses, they are prioritized on the network over all of those residential customers I talked about. We offer 3 persistent IPs included with each circuit. And a persistent IP is basically just a dynamically assigned IP that becomes static once it's assigned to a MAC address. Okay, so you plug in a device, the network sees that device, assigns the IP to it, and that IP does not change as long as that device stays in place. Okay. If it's offline for, I think it's something like 15 days, then that IP can cycle out. So, but you can always get it back in. Everything includes the equipment lease, and as I talked about, fast installs. So, wherever you do business, we've got you covered. So we've got service everywhere. Here's some of the spaces. We've got, construction is one of our fastest growing verticals. We do a lot of agribusiness. We do a lot of retail, stuff like that. We've got basically service available wherever you need it. All right, let's talk a little bit about business continuity or redundancy. So the satellite is a great option for a backup circuit because the service is 23,000 miles away in space, right? So anything that happens here terrestrially, you're insulated from that. If you've got a hurricane, say for example, here in Florida, and everything's down locally, well, we can terminate at a ground center somewhere else in the country. So we don't have to come to Florida. We can come somewhere else. We got redundancy built into the network. So I'll tell you a story about one of our larger customers. Smithfield Farms is one of the largest pork producers in the United States. They've got over 200 farms with us in North Carolina primarily. So when Hurricane Florence came through there, that whole area was completely devastated, right? Cable was out, power was out, everybody was down, and except satellite. So they have us at every single one of their locations. They got out there, they had portable generators, fired them up, and 96% of their locations were back online immediately. So we had the other ones back up within a couple of weeks. So that's a pretty good story as a backup. And for backup circuits, we do have a metered option. So if you're using it as a backup, probably that unlimited plan is a little more than you need. We've got plans starting at 1 gig all the way up to 50 gigs. And then we have this plan over here is for like a really heavy user. So the unlimited plan does have a threshold on it, after which you can lose your priority. And for customers that can't have that happen, that heavy usage plan is really, really good. All right. And probably one of the favorite things to talk about, 3 to 5 day install. So this is where our product kind of becomes that real safety net for you, right? I worked with John at Comcast a number of years ago and love Comcast. It's a great company. But, sometimes those fiber builds get delayed, right? Or sometimes they tell you, hey, coax is available here. They get out there like, oh, sorry, guys, it's going to be 60 days. We got to build it out. Well, what do you do for your customer in that state, right? We can help you out there. So we can install in 3 to 5 days, get them up and running, take the heat off, get them something to use while they build out the network. So, and then you can turn that plan into a backup once they're installed. So. All right, a couple of myths that I like to talk about. Hey, you guys are only good for rural areas. Yeah, that's true. We do have a lot of rural customers. That's a big base for us. But we have a lot of customers in urban areas as well. On the other side of the track where cable's maybe not built out, where they don't have access to AT&T or other services as well, we provide service there. Can only be used as a backup. As I just talked about, we are a great option as a backup, but certainly don't have to be only a backup. What about weather, right? Everybody's had DirecTV, service goes out when it rains. Remember that map where I talked about those beams and I showed you there? That's a proprietary technology we developed called spot beam technology. What it allows us to do is divert power from one beam to another across the country. So if you've got snow over Idaho and a real problem there, but it's sunny over Atlanta, we can take power from that Atlanta beam, divert it to the one over Idaho, and keep the service up and running. So pretty cool. It's kind of a game changer as far as that's concerned. And it can't support VoIP. Everybody says that, right? We actually can support VoIP. We've been working with a lot of the VoIP carriers. We have also launched our own VoIP product, which I'll talk about in a minute. But we've got hundreds of installs every month with customers that are using voice over IP services with it. So, all right. Just to finish up again, wherever your customers do business, we've got them covered. And here's just a couple of the verticals that we've been really successful in. And to finish up, just those 3 things again, right? Number 1, coverage everywhere. We've got coverage to 100% of the U.S., speeds up broadband level speeds to 96% of the U.S. population. Perfect option for redundancy and can install in 3 to 5 days. So, I think I should talk about our international coverage as well, right? I definitely should. So this is one of the things that we launched just recently. I think we brought TCG into the international portfolio probably like in October, November. So we now have service available in Mexico, as well as the U.S. and Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. So if you've got customers that are in some of those areas that are tough to reach, we've got 100% coverage across Mexico, and we've also got coverage in Puerto Rico, 100%, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. We do have a few other islands that we can offer service to, but it's pretty hit or miss depending on what's there as far as infrastructure. Biggest challenge with some of those is getting set up to have somebody come out and do installs. So that's always a challenge. One of my favorite things is you'll notice down here is the Gulf is covered with our satellite there. So we've got a lot of offshore platforms that we're providing service to. That's been a huge growth area for us. So we've got a lot of offshore oil platforms and things like that. Here's the map. So obviously we've got 100% coverage in Mexico with 12x3 and 25x3 in some areas. We've got both unlimited and metered plans available. And then in U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, those plans are 25x3 across the island. Plans start at $85 a month in those areas, so pretty attractive. All right, so one of our newest products is also voice. We just launched this very recently. If anybody was at Channel Source, they may have seen a demo of this. So that was, if you had the opportunity to come over and make a phone call, we're kind of making partners believers with this, right? Everybody's like, you can't do a voice over satellite. Well, come on over, try it, make a phone call. And they're picking up and they're making a call, and it works. It sounds great. Everything's good. There's all kinds of videos on LinkedIn showing it. Kevin's made calls on our network. And it's a great experience. It's very clear. We do have latency on the satellite circuit, which can impact voice, but the two biggest killers for voice quality are packet loss and jitter, and both of those are very consistent on our network. So typically you have a very, very clear call that sounds really, really good, and there's a little bit of a delay. Obviously you've got that latency there that does that, but people adapt to the cadence of the conversation pretty quick. And it's not as bad as everybody thinks it's going to be. So. And our business hotspots, very similar to the product you heard Comcast talk about as well, actually. So very similar. We've got indoor and outdoor access points, ability to do splash pages, things like this. This is a true managed Wi-Fi system. So it's not just basically a wireless router. It's analytics, all sorts of details, those things behind it, content filtering, all that stuff. So this is a pretty cool product that we've got that we're launching. And actually this, combined with our service, is really where we kind of get into the IoT field. So, agribusiness, I talked a little bit about Smithfield, but one of the cool things that they use the service for is that they've got all their hogs tagged, with sensors, things like that, so they know where they are. And they use the satellite as well as some of these hotspots throughout the property to kind of track them where they're going. So that's kind of where we can come into the IoT play. Obviously, the first component of that is internet, and so you need that to be able to do it. So, all right, a couple of examples of some solutions we've got there. This is really the Smithfield solution there. Those hog farms are way out in the middle of nowhere, right? Nobody wants to live near a hog farm because they stink. If you've ever been to one, you know what I'm talking about. Pretty bad. But yeah, there's a bunch of them, and they're all over the place. And so we've got several of them. There's over 2 million farms in the U.S. And here in Florida, there's a lot of agribusiness as well. So certainly an opportunity to talk to them if you haven't, or if you have some customers that are in that space. We're a great option for some of those more remote farms and locations. Construction, I talked a little bit about this, but these trailers are popping up all over the place. Construction here in Florida, you guys got a lot of it going on, but satellite's a great option. We can get there, we can install real quick. They use the service over the course of the time, and then they just take it down. Now, we don't have a month-to-month option, but our early termination fees are they're designed so that you can use it as such. So it's $15 per month remaining on a 24-month term. So if you're a construction company, you're there for 12 months, you use the service, you cancel it at the end of it, it's $180, take it away. So they love it. We've been, it's probably our fastest growing vertical, I would say, for sure. And retail, who carries cash anymore? Anybody got cash? If you do, you can just leave it up front here. That's fine. But nobody carries cash, right? If you can't take credit cards, you're done. You're out of business. Close the doors. So if your internet goes down and you can't do that, you need a backup solution. So we're a great option for that. We've got several large retail chains that are using us as backup, primarily for their point-of-sale system, so that they can continue to take credit cards, continue to do transactions, even if they lose their primary internet service. So. All right, so that's it. That's me. Any questions? Yeah.
I have a couple actually. For the construction companies and the trailers, is it mobile? So for example, they move to their next.
Yeah. Well, here I'll answer that because I have an agent that specializes in the construction vertical. One of the best things about their product is that all of the contracts are 24 months. Okay, and you talk about ETFs a little bit?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
All the contracts are 24 months, and there's a $15 ETF per month. But what's great about the construction trailers is that all you have to do is pay the install fee again. So if it sits there for 9 months, right, it'll stay co-terminus, you pay the install fee again, and you can then move it to the new site.
Yeah.
Right?
You can keep it with you.
Correct.
Well, it's actually a new install.
Yeah, it's a new install, right? So it starts that timer again with the 24 months. But what's great about it, like I said before, is that only $15 per month the ETF. That's by far the lowest in the industry. if the trailer stays there for a year, right, at 15 bucks times 12 months, it's only $180. It's essentially 1 month service to get out of the contract.
Yeah.
So, but most customers, especially in the construction vertical, like we tell them it's $15 per month, they just kind of laugh at us because they're not used to that. So, but as an agent that does a lot in there, and we've moved stuff around, we can also, Viasat's very friendly in terms of ratcheting up that bandwidth, right? So if they did want to go up to a 60 meg or 100 meg and then come in, then bring it back down on the metered plans, you can shift between that. Like, Graham has a couple agents that do business with like radio stations, and they're constantly fluctuating their bandwidth, based upon, telethons and events and stuff like that. So they're extremely flexible when it comes to that, not just on the ETF side, but also on, kind of changing, the product right month in, month out. It's very, very flexible.
Yeah, it's the construction sites. We thought that, hey, we need to have a mobile product, and we actually do have a product called Nomadic, which is more of a mobile, where like I can pull up somewhere, set up a dish, use the service, put it back in, and off I go to the next location. It's a totally different product than this. This is a static product, but we do have that available in our portfolio as well. We thought that mobility was going to be a big deal for construction companies, as it with those ETFs. Each construction project is its own cost center typically, right? So they'd rather just cancel it and start a new circuit at the new site. Pay the ETFs, cancel it, tie it to that project, that cost center, and then start it at a new one. So hasn't been that big a deal with it. We don't get a lot of requests to move it, actually. It's kind of funny. So they just close it, pay the ETFs, and start at a new one. So. Yeah, so VPN is a challenge for satellite, right? Because of the latency. So we have a product, a technology that we do. It's like an acceleration algorithm that we use on the network that can, when traffic goes into a VPN, it's hidden from that algorithm, right? So you see, you can see reduced performance over VPN. It varies based on the protocol of the VPN, how reduced the performance is. Yeah, so if you've got a small customer that's not, anytime you've got, machine to machine or things like that, it's not an issue because it's such a little bit of data. But if you've got users that are, on the other side, experience it over a VPN, they will see slower performance. So we've got something that we're working on that will address that. It's just not ready for the market yet. So, yeah.
So I realize there's always going to be a necessity for satellite service, especially for offshore and stuff like that. But do you think, at least maybe down the road, with 5G infrastructure getting built out more and more, that there's going to be perhaps less of a meter reliance on satellite, more terrestrial based?
Yeah. So if you go on our website, our CEO actually talks about this in detail. 5G, where they're going to be building out 5G, at least initially, it's going to be areas where there's dense populations, right? Which isn't really where we service customers. We do have some customers in those areas, things like construction sites and things, but primarily our customers are in areas where they don't have other options. I mean, I'm very real about it, right? If you can get a cable connection or our connection, get the cable connection, right? It's faster, it's cheaper, and it's a good service. You wouldn't buy satellite if you had that option, but a lot of places don't have that option, right? And when 5G is built out, those are the areas that they're going to be offering service because there's people there, right? That's why you're going to do it. So we don't see it as a huge threat because, again, they don't really play in the same areas that we're successful in. So certainly 5G is going to change a lot, right? And a lot of that remains to be seen what the impact of that is, but it hasn't changed the way we're going to market or approaching anything at all. So yeah.
On your metered connections, what happens when you reach the limitation threshold?
The metered connections are pay as you go. So you start off with a certain bucket of data, depending on how much that is, like 1 gig for $50, or you can go up to 50 gigs. Once you go over that number, you just pay for your additional gigs. Huh? You just continue to, you pay. So say you're on a 1 gig connection and you use 4, you'd pay your monthly fee for the 1 gig, plus you'd pay, I think it's $10 a month for the next 3. No. You use it within a calendar month, and then if you don't use it, you lose it. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
On your unlimited connections, you said there is some limit where you lose your priority. What is that limit, and what does it mean?
Yeah, so it's we call it an inflection point. But basically, each one of those unlimited plans has a point where once you cross that point, you lose your priority on the network. Okay, so you can continue to use data, but you're subject to congestion on the network at that point. So it's hard to say every time it's going to be like this because it really varies on which beam you're in, how many other people are on the beam at the same time as you. If you happen to be in a beam, excuse me, that is wide open, like you're the only customer on it, you'll probably see no impact if you hit that inflection point. But if you're in a beam that's got several thousand and they're all on the network, then you could see slower speeds. And it really just varies based on how many people you're competing with, Oh, so for the 35 by 4, it's 75 gigs. So that's a lot of data.
Because if you're utilizing any type of 4G LTE service, they start throttling at 22.5 gigs. So you essentially get 3 times the threshold.
And when I showed the plans, there was that one on the end. So I have some customers that are like, look, we're going to use way more than 75 gigs. We know it. We plan on it. And we don't want to be subject to congestion. We never want to lose our priority. That's where that 200 gig plan that I showed on the far end for heavy users comes into play. So they're always prioritized on the network. Our metered plans never lose that priority because you just pay as you use more, right? So it's only the unlimited plans that have that. So
Yeah.
With respect to the upload speed, does the number of participants in the beam impact the upload speed as well?
So we provision all of our circuits at 150% of what they are advertised at, okay? So they're actually provisioned at, it's 35 by 4. It's actually provisioned at, like 50, whatever, by 6, okay? So typically, as long as a customer is humming along at, within that sort of 75 gig inflection point or whatever, they're going to see pretty consistently 35 by 4. A lot of times we're seeing 35 by 5, 50 by 5, some of the speed tests we run. Really, that's where it comes in. But yeah, our network performance metrics are really, really good, especially compared to some of our other satellite competitors, where it's like, within the certain time frame, like customers are getting that like 90-something% of the time. So, So that's the number one question we get. We're always like, why only 4? So we are in the process of working to try and upload that, increase that upload speed, because we know really businesses need that, right? They want more than 4. Residential customers don't care. And these satellites were built primarily for residential. We only started the business group like 4 years ago. So all these satellites were designed with residential customers in mind, and they just care about download, okay? So as it turns out, on our original satellite, Viasat 1, we do have the ability to increase the upload speeds. And so right now we're working on that, and I think we're going to do Florida as one of the first markets. I can't tell you when. We were hoping to be done already, but where we're probably going to be somewhere in the 5 to 8 range. So 5's kind of, I think, 5 would be a nice number. If we could get to 5, that we're always advertised at 5, offering that, 90-something% of the time. I think that would be a good number. Yeah. We don't have service in Cuba. We go about, we don't have it set up there yet, but we do. The Viasat 2 satellite can service sort of the northern tip of Colombia, but we don't have any partners set up down there to sell yet. So yeah, and Mexico too. Mexico's that we've been doing pretty well in Mexico, because there's a lot of areas there that don't have access to service. But yeah, unfortunately not Cuba. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, cool. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Enjoy your steaks.